Hello and welcome to another episode of the Touchy Gooners podcast. Thank you all for tuning in wherever you're listening. We're glad that you are. This week, we've got myself, Nigerian Dan, no German Dan this week. And we have Sean and Leroy. How are you guys doing?
Good evening, good evening.
All good, all good.
We are joined by a very special guest. We're very happy to have you on. From the Arsenal Vision podcast, very popular podcast. All three of us and most of the rest of the Touchy Gooners cast all tune in on a, I guess, somewhat religious basis, I think, to hear what yourself, Tim, Clive and Paul have to say on the podcast. So we're very, very glad to have you on. Yankee Gunner.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I have to say, it is a shame of the four members of our podcast that somehow you wound up with me responding to your DM. And I'm sure when you sent the DM, you were like, oh, maybe it'll be Clive, maybe it'll be Tim. Oh, shit, it's Elliot. All right, well, we're stuck now. We asked him. So we got to have him on. So here I am.
Do you know what, Elliot? It was specifically you. We've had Clive on before, so no, it was you the target this time. So.
Okay. It's all coming out now. Okay, thanks, Sean.
It's a funny one because I think your views are probably more in line with, I think, most of the podcasts. I think we're seen as quite a highly critical analysis of Arsenal, and
hence
so
the name.
It's very interesting to see. Yeah, it's very interesting to see how how some of your views might align with some of ours. So let's get straight into it then. I guess 1-0 loss to Aston Villa. Not the best result, and it seemed like it's pretty much one of the Arsenal of old, in terms of we shoot ourselves in the foot and then early on and can't seem to muster up enough to equalise or potentially win the game. What I guess what's your overall thoughts and opinions about that game as a whole? We will go into sort of individual player performances and stuff throughout the rest of the episode, but yeah, it'd be good to hear what your thoughts are on that game and what it might potentially mean for our season.
Yeah, and I promise I'm not trying to be contrarian just for like hashtag clicks or anything, but there is an interesting phenomenon going on, guys. I think now with Twitter and whether it's the Arsenal Fan TV or some of the podcasts or whatever it is, that you can watch a game and get very caught up in what the emotion other people are feeling is. And you start to see the game through the lens of that reaction. So if I'm on Twitter when I'm watching the game and Twitter's starting to lose their mind, I kind of start to lose my mind too. And that's how I see the game. So I have to admit, I sort of felt you should feel pretty bad about losing any game. Losing was not fun. But then Clive and I, on our Patreon, we did a second half rewatch where we watched the game together and we analyzed what we're seeing and we put that out as a video. And I can't help it. It was really good. And I put this on Twitter and people are like, oh, you've lowered your standards. What's wrong with you? I guess you like losing, all the usual civil discourse that you get on social media. But the reality is, maybe it's how low the bar was from November and December. Or maybe it is a genuine improvement that we are seeing. You can lose games. That can happen. It's a low-scoring sport. You can lose games. But the way we were pushing the ball up the pitch, the way Partey was getting it up the pitch quickly, the way we were pushing it between the lines to Smith Rowe flitting around, the way we were bringing Pepe into play and creating dangerous moves, and there were a lot of moves that broke down with the final ball. And I'm not saying that's okay. That's part of football too. Getting the last ball right, getting the shot right. But watching it a second time, I couldn't help but feel if we play that way the rest of the season, more often than not, it will not just be a good performance, it will be a result. And right now, things aren't going for us. They rotationally fouled a lot. They got away with that. We had a penalty that wasn't given. We had an Odegaard shot that was blasted over. We had a Pepe shot that was just wide of the post. We had a Pepe cross for an Aubameyang tap-in that hits a defender, just nicks off a defender, and just goes right into Emi Martinez's hands instead of going into the goal or continuing on to Aubameyang. We had these moments. And Martinez made a world-class save from the Xhaka free kick. We were chasing the game, and that was our fault. We gave away a goal early. But these last two games, we've been ruthlessly punished by the finest of margins. And if you came away from the first half of Wolves thinking, great, and we were unlucky, I beg you, watch the second half of Villa again, and you come back here and tell me that it wasn't great. So I guess what I would say is this. I'm not a Pollyanna. I'm not going to say losing's okay. It's not. But if I remember correctly, Emery went on, was it a 26-game unbeaten run or something? And during that run, we were pretty shit. Am I allowed to talk like that on here? Is that okay? Okay. Yeah, we were pretty shit. But like nobody addressed it because we were, and we wanted the results to be real. So we just kind of closed our eyes and said, yeah, this is fine. But it wasn't fine. And sure enough, we kept playing that way and the results caught up with us and we know what happened. I am convinced if we keep playing this way, that this is good process and the outcome will come. So I know I'm not, my brand isn't positivity, but I can only analyze what I watch. I watched this game a second time and I think we played pretty well. And are we still a flawed team? Of course we are. But yeah, I'm overall encouraged that we continue to be able to play in a way that I think we'll get results if we stick with it. Sorry to disappoint you guys.
No, I find that very interesting because, on watching the second half again as well, so I was trying to write a piece this week on Martin Odegaard and see, and just to sort of profile him and see where he might fit into the team. And I'm watching the second half again. I think there are a lot of good elements as to, as you mentioned, the build up. And it seemed like maybe we were just lacking that bit of final third execution, or that final finish. And it's very contrasting, I think, to some of the games we were playing in October, November, December, where I think first half against Leicester is one that comes to mind. Where at the time, people were saying, "Oh yeah, that's probably one of the best halves we played all season." But if you watch that again, I don't think that repeatability factor of that first half was quite there, whereas in this game, I do think that repeatability factor is there. The Partey being the option for in the first phase is massive here. Xhaka playing those passes down the left channel to Pepe or Saka or something like that. I think the elements of this performance in terms of the styles that we were trying to do are very repeatable, and I do feel like now. There's certain upgrade opportunities that we can have in the team that can really propel us to that next level. Leroy, let's get you involved in the conversation. Is there anything that you want to sort of add to that?
So yeah, in a similar way, as I was saying to you guys before, my brand is a bit negativity as well. I'm known for in the Touchy Gooners community, but I was really enthused. The reason is, when just from a visceral perspective, it was fun to watch again, and we haven't had that in a long time. So remember what we were saying before in previous podcasts about how we don't take risks in the final third. I felt it was good because we were playing those balls around the corner, those balls in between two players that actually make defenders move around, those tiny little movements that really, really start moving around the opposition. Lots of link-up play. People were linking up very well. Quick passes, 1-2. There was a lot of things which I thought, this is the style of play which we used to watch, and this is what we all grew up on. So I was really enthused. So I thought, even though we didn't create a barrage of chances in the second half, we looked like a team that if we had another half an hour, we could create chances and we could score goals. So if you look at Wolves, when we had 11 men, same thing. We played really well. We played really well in this second half. And in a similar way to Elliot said, the process is really important and the results will come. So in the inverse to Emery, where the process wasn't great and we were getting results, what I'm seeing is the start of a process with different players and different profiles, which are going to improve us moving forward. So I was really happy, actually. I was thinking, I know we lost. I mean, I'm not happy that we lost, but I'm excited for what's to come, because I think that if we keep 11 men on the pitch and we keep players, I can see us winning games and I can see us going on a decent run, particularly when we get past these difficult teams, the Man Cities, etc. The back end of the season, we have a lot of winnable games. And obviously this season's a bit of a write-off. This season's done. So I feel like if we really put together a good, strong run and build up some confidence and momentum at the back end of this season, that have a really good summer, that puts us in really good stead going into next season. And I feel that that's important.
Can I just add one thing to what you were saying about that if we had another half hour? I think we got really unlucky in one key respect in this game. And I know it gets tedious hearing about luck. Oh, we're unlucky. We're where we are on the table because we belong there. But in this game, losing Partey to injury when because we were all over them, And Willian was going to Smith Rowe. Now, none of us, I'm sure, are thrilled about, but Smith Rowe was playing on that right forward position, and it, while he was doing fine there, that's not really his natural position. So Willian probably would have been able to keep Saka and Pepe on the left, where they were really causing problems. Partey was creating the urgency for us pushing the ball up the pitch into those spaces where Odegaard was really being influential. Partey going off meant Willian came on and played on the left, and we moved Pepe to the right, and that destabilized the whole thing. And Smith Rowe dropped deeper into central midfield where he was less influential. And I just thought you started to see a little more horseshoe passing around the back to try to get the ball forward. So a lot of the things we were doing well, where I really felt like that goal was coming, when Partey went off, I think some of the momentum really went off with him, in part because too many things switched around. Partey came off, Pepe went right, Smith deep, Will left where he's not super effective. I mean, he's not super effective anywhere but the bench right now, but it's not where we want him. So I totally agree. We were all over them, but that change, I think, sapped us of the sense that it was really, not that we were bad after that. I think it forced us to reconfigure too many things on the pitch at once, and that destabilized what we were trying.
Yeah, I think that's Ceballos was a sub. I think he should have gone to Ceballos and Partey, in my opinion.
Ready? Yeah.
Yeah, I think those are really fair points. Before I go into I guess the individual player performances, I guess there is one other, I guess, somewhat major talking point, probably exacerbated by the fact that, similar thing went against us in the Wolves match a few days prior, refereeing decisions, right? So, Sean, what do you make of the fact that we didn't get that penalty for Lacazette, with Martinez apparently, clearly pulling him down, VAR looking at that, and deciding that's not a pen? And I guess the Saka decision probably a bit less cut and dry as to whether or not that should be a red card, but we have seen them given, we've seen them not given. So what do you think about those decisions?
So I thought the Lacazette one was definitely a penalty. I get the argument of some people that he was leaning into Martinez a bit, but I just think I think things are given to goalkeepers far too easily, and I think it needs to be weighted a bit more just the other way. I guess at the moment it's quite easy for us to feel just down on our luck, as if everything's going against us. And in another time where maybe some of the goals were going in, we probably wouldn't focus on these decisions a bit as much, so we're probably exacerbating them a bit more than necessary. But I think to Arteta's point, he wants to just, he's probably got his own views, but he probably just wants to focus on what he can control, which is obviously the performances more so. I think those decisions definitely could have gone our way. Maybe if it's another team, it would have gone their way, but I just don't really want to dwell on it too much. I just think, the process of what these guys have discussed is probably more important at this point in time. And that's where we should focus our energy. I don't think it's as significant as probably it's been played out to be. I think the Wolves one was a lot more harsh than probably what we saw on Saturday.
Yeah, fair points. I do think though, and I probably will get accused of being some sort of conspiracy theorist. I think there is an element of bias, not intentional, but I think probably unconscious bias, and probably bias that is perpetuated by, the narrative of certain teams in the Premier League, and I feel like because referees are human, that is always going to play a part, right? I think the fact that certain pundits or certain teams are represented more than others in the pundit sphere makes a big difference into how teams are portrayed. This whole element of Arsenal being a soft team is something that I think is very much here to stay in England, and I feel like certain times that feeds into how the referees referee our matches, if that makes sense. I think certain fouls against us aren't necessarily punished as harshly as they should be, because Arsenal are a team that are soft, and you're allowed to sort of kick lumps up them. And I think also it's very funny that, I guess, for that David Luiz scenario, in and of itself, when the referee who on BT Sport is giving his opinion as to, you know, why a decision has been made. He himself talks about, oh, Louise has done this in the past, that kind of thing, right? And when you're being an objective referee looking at an incident on VAR, things like the player's history and whether or not he has, you know, an ability to make these sort of mistakes shouldn't come into your decision making when you're reviewing an isolated incident. But I think the fact that, you know, someone is able to come on TV and say that shows that, you know, this goes into the thinking of the referees on the pitch as well. And I feel like until we can sort of be objective without, you know, these preconceptions about certain teams or certain players, you're always going to get decisions that go against you because of those, I guess, unconscious biases. And that, I think, is very frustrating as a fan, because you can view a decision like the Southampton one on the exact same day and it be reviewed and rescinded, but for some reason, you know, the Arsenal one isn't. And that's very, very frustrating to, I think, see, especially when you've gone through, you know, the initial referee's decision, the VAR's decision, and then some disciplinary board's decision on top of that. So, you know, when you see these decisions going against you, it's very difficult, I think, to eliminate that, you know, feeling of, you know, they're all against us, that kind of thing. So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that.
You know what I don't hear mentioned? So, I don't have the data in front of me, so I don't know. But like the one thing that I think about is, clearly referees get calls wrong for every team and they get calls right for every team, right? But it's also related to how much possession you have in dangerous areas. So like, for example, let's say on average, a penalty is given 1 out of every 100 touches a team has in the box. I'm making something up just to make it easy, right? If as a team you average 100 touches in the box a game, you're going to get 1 penalty a game. If you average 10 touches in the box a game, you're going to get every 10 games. So, like, I wonder if one of the problems that we have is just the way we are playing. And I don't really have the data to back this up, but, like, are we not creating enough situations that put referees under pressure to give us calls? And so when they don't give it to us, it feels so terrible. Like, because I'm sure every team has calls that don't go their way, but some of the teams that get more penalties, like, are they better at diving? They maybe are. Maybe their players throw themselves to the ground more or better at it. Maybe they're better at surrounding the ref, asking for calls, whatever the case may be. Because I do think that we are too nice in that respect. Pepe, you say whatever you want about foreign players this, foreign players that. Pepe's the most honest player I've ever seen. The guy gets kicked to pieces, and he stays up. He really does try to stay up. I mean, the goal he scores against Wolves, he could have gone down 2 different times. But are we getting it in the box enough? Are we getting into dangerous positions enough? Are we doing the things then that surround the theatrics of the game to get the calls? Because I just can't buy the argument that the refs are out to get Arsenal. I can buy the argument that refs are swayed by lots of different factors that we aren't maybe making the most of. And then the question becomes like, well, should you have to? Well, obviously you shouldn't have to. But if that's the way the game is played, you know, you can sit here and complain about not getting calls, or you can start whining and surrounding the ref. I mean, Barcelona at their peak of being absolute ref-owning bastards would surround the ref. I was convinced they worked on their surrounding the ref in training as much as they did anything else. So, like, maybe we just need to sort of get on the boat with that, you know?
So, yeah. I think if you ask every different club out of all the 20 clubs, probably 15, 16 say they think they've got an agenda against them. I think we're looking at the wrong problem. Personally, I feel like it's just the standard of refereeing in the UK is lower than the other big nations. So, and where it stands out to me is when I watch big Champions League games. So when I watch big Champions League games, how often do you really notice the referee? You don't really notice the referee that much when I'm watching those games. And it's because they're quality refs. They just get on with it. They get the job done. They go out in silence. I just feel in the UK, we have too many of our best refs, or quote unquote best refs, or high profile refs who just make bad decisions. And I feel that if you're on the receiving end of bad decisions time and time again, the emotion in you is going to build up a narrative. And I think that's probably going to happen. If you ask loads of clubs in the Premier League, they'll feel the same. And I just feel the standard of the referee in the Premier League just needs to improve. That's all I feel about it.
Yeah, fair points. And so, in terms of, I guess, individual player performances from this game, I think there's a few that I think would be good to touch on. I think the strikers, will be where I go first, and I think let's talk about them as a grouping. Right, because I think Lacazette started this match, and I don't think he was bad in this game at all. I think, you know, he did a few nice things. He dropped in to link play, and I think that relationship that he's developed between him, Smith Rowe, and Saka is something that has benefited the team in recent weeks. And then Aubameyang came on. And I think it's fair to say he was probably less involved in the build-up, but you know, he only had, I think, 20-something minutes on the pitch and managed to have, you know, more shots at goal than Lacazette did in the entire 70 minutes or 65 minutes that he was on the pitch. So I feel like they're definitely two complete different profiles of striker. But where do you think we should go, I guess, Elliot, here in terms of who is the starting number 9 for Arsenal in our current situation?
This one's easy for me, and unfortunately, if people listen to our podcast and don't fast forward through the sections where I talk, they're going to have heard this, but like, it's Aubameyang and it's not close. It's not close for so many reasons. And I'll try to move through them quickly, which is not my forte, but I'm going to try. So first of all, there's just the strategic one, which is Lacazette probably is not getting a new deal and probably will go this summer. If we're a smart club, we'll find a way to get some money for him and move him on. Giving him a new deal doesn't make a lot of sense. Even, look, full credit to him. He's picked up his form. He's raised his level. He's our leading scorer. Like, all credit to him. He's not our future. Whether we should have done it or not is on £300,000 a week for the next 3 seasons at Arsenal. Making it Aubameyang at number 9 is the future for Arsenal for the next few seasons. It is not the future with Lacazette. So strategically, it just makes sense to make Aubameyang number 9 work. Then there's just the other thing that kind of drives me a little bit crazy, which is because we always kind of want to defend our players, or we want to see the best in our players, I think people go a long way towards overvaluing certain things in football. Lacazette's hold-up play is better than Aubameyang's. I'll give him that. Back to goal, he's a little bit better. The idea that Lacazette is some brilliant link-up striker is just not true. I'm sorry. It's just not. Like, he isn't. And I don't know if anybody's been watching, but we had 2 killer counterattack opportunities the last couple weeks. One against Manchester United, where Lacazette opted to shoot from 20 yards out instead of just slipping it in, I think it was to Martinelli, standing in acres of space. And then there was one in this game where he holds it, and he holds it, and he holds it, and he holds it, and he holds it. And you can slide in Pepe, you can slide in Saka, and he takes his time, and he takes his time. And he lets Mings, you know, basically amble over to a position and cut out the pass, and he still makes the wrong choice and slides it to Saka, and Mings cuts it out. And again, I'm not trying to kill the guy. He has done positive things, but the extent to which we claim his play is sort of Firmino-esque, the way I hear, like, it's not. It's not. The guy is not laying on chances. And unfortunately, look, no matter how good your hold-up play is, I still think a number 9 has to shoot and score. Lacazette had 0 shots. Not 0 shots on target. 0 shots against Villa. That's not going to cut it. You know, Aubameyang, unfortunately, Aubameyang is a player you only notice when he's popping up 5 yards out from goal and scoring. So when he has a bad game, it's shockingly bad because he's totally anonymous. When he has a good game, he scores a hat trick. Over his career, he's nearly a goal-a-game guy. So just play him. Just play him at center forward. You're right. 20 minutes he's on the pitch. He has a cross to the near post that he tries to tap in, gets a little unlucky. He has a shot that I'm convinced he's going to slam into the back of the net, but Rob Holding falls backwards trying to head it, do some crazy thing and takes it from him. And then he has a back post run that Pepe spots, and I only picked this up on second watching. And Pepe's about to slot it into him for the absolute beautiful tap-in move. And the ball just catches the Villa defender and ricochets right to Emi Martinez's hands, like of all the places to go. So, you know, he's on the pitch 20 minutes and he's in 3 or 4 really good goal-scoring positions. That's what he does. I think it's the combination of Aubameyang being our future at center forward. We've committed to that, so we have to make it work. Plus the fact that he has the goal-scoring record that you want to... Plus the fact that Lacazette's hold-up play isn't good enough to compensate for what I think his other shortcomings are. So to me, this is a no-brainer. And look, I guess you could argue, and I'll finish it here. I guess you could argue, well, why not play him on the left? He had been effective there. With of Pepe on the left and Saka on the right and how good they've looked, and with Martinelli waiting in the wings as a guy we want to build up for the future, I think now we have lefts. I don't like your wide forwards being low touch players. I don't mind your striker being a low touch player if he's a goal scorer. So get Pepe or Martinelli or Saka on the wings where they can help build play. Put Aubameyang through the middle. Get ESR in the 9. And yeah, look, when you didn't in the 10, when you didn't have a number 10 and Lacazette was dropping in and having to be the de facto 10, maybe he fit more. We have a 10 now. We don't need our striker doing that. So that is my sermon on why Aubameyang over Lacazette. And you can like mute me or kick me off the podcast now.
Much appreciated. Much appreciated. Sharon, do you have anything that you want to add to that?
To be fair, Elliot won't find any disagreement here, so I think it'll be a
Huzzah.
full house. It'll be a full house all round. Yeah, and I think he's touched on every single point. Basically, as well, I'm in agreement. I don't like strikers wide. We know Aubameyang is not good in build up, so I don't really understand the logic of using him there. I would get it more if we had a 10 who could properly bring people into play. But he's played like I never, when he was at Dortmund, we never heard any cries about his back to game goal because he was surrounded by Dembele, Marco Reus, Mkhitaryan when he was okay. Do you know what I mean? So he had loads of creators in and around him, so he could just focus his movement in and around the box. And his best quality is like Cavani's sharpness of movement in and around the box. So I just, having him on the left touchline and what he's 32 now. So you don't want this guy doing shuttle runs up and down the wing for the rest of his contract. It's such a waste of, £300,000. Like Elliot said, you can argue whether it was a good investment or not, but you've done the investment now. So you have to invest in him. You've got to play to his strengths. And I get that, in an ideal world, he's a 6 foot plus forward who doesn't really like engaging with centre forwards. But to be fair, not that I'm saying he is Henry. Henry was a 6 foot plus centre forward who never engaged with centre backs. You know what I mean? Henry used to drift in from the left. Aubameyang has that as well when he can ghost in behind. So yeah, I think you can get in you watch Cavani as well. Cavani doesn't really spend time hustling and bustling centre backs as well. He just peels off. He knows when to peel. And now because we've got more ball handlers in the team, you've got ESI, you've got Saka, you've got Odegaard. Aubameyang can focus on what he's good at, and that's, finding the pockets in and around and either or breaking beyond the last man to get in on goal. So yeah, I would like to see, it probably needs a bit of work, but I would like to see, me personally, I would like to see ESR, Saka and Odegaard all rotate. You know how we used to have under Wenger, loads of technicians on the ball, because that's where we saw a lot of combinations starting to form on Saturday as well. So all of them, linking up in behind Aubameyang, and I think Aubameyang would thrive. I really think he would thrive as long as we've got that, that solid base in midfield that allows that rotation of positions with those attacking free. So yeah, no disagreements from me up front.
Great stuff. Leroy, I guess the next player that I think is performance that we should discuss a little bit would be Granit Xhaka here. So for me, I think this was a really good game from Granit Xhaka. I did see Shelm put out a tweet very critical of him straight after the game that was receiving some traction.
Before Leroy goes in, can I just say, my criticism of Xhaka wasn't, about this game per se. And I can also admit that he's been good in very, very recent weeks. But what I don't like is, how Arsenal fans always do this bit of revisionism around holding guys like Xhaka, people we've seen their level over the past 4 or 5 years. Every player will have bouts of, decent form, but ultimately we are where we are, partly because we've relied too much on players like this. You saw with Holding for the goal. When these guys are exposed to massive bits of space, we won't be able to control every bit of game. There'll be games where you have to win your duels. You'll have to be able to, beat pressure. And obviously Xhaka's been good because Partey helps to cover a lot of his deficiencies. But I don't, and obviously good partnerships are built on covering each other's weaknesses. But at the same time, I think the best players can handle their own. And I think we could get a partner for Partey who doesn't need Partey to hold his hand. Do you know what I mean? So Xhaka's doing okay, but and obviously I'll let Leroy take on from here. But still, yeah, my tweet was about the wider part of the game, was that if he's a key component of the team going forward, I still think we're going to have our ceiling and our limits.
Fair enough. Leroy, yeah. So what did you make of this performance? And I guess touching on Sean's point about the ceiling of the team if Xhaka is playing in centre mid.
So I agree with a lot of what Sean just said. Now Xhaka's played really well for me in the last few games, really, really well. The things that I like about Xhaka is he takes responsibility. Sometimes he can trick the stats, which we know he tries to do, but he takes responsibility and he will pass forward. And I feel that Partey coming in the team and him being more the second in command or the lieutenant has freed him up a bit. So I think it was a good game from him. I thought he ran his socks off. I thought he really, really tried. I thought he was passing the ball forward. He was moving it quickly than he normally does. So it was a good performance. But as Sharon said, we know what he does. We know his limitations. The peak players that have come into our team in terms of the recruitment recently, or the starting players like Partey, they're rounded, complete players. These players can adapt to all different situations that the game requires. And this is the direction we need to move in. So, and that one thing, I mean, people are talking about replacing Xhaka with Basuma, not to sort of digress a bit, but we don't want that because Basuma is another limited player. He's got everything that Xhaka hasn't got, but he doesn't have what Xhaka has. He doesn't have the passing ability. He doesn't have the passing range. He can't control a game like that, which Xhaka can when he's playing, when it's in his Goldilocks zone, obviously. So I just feel that we need to move away from this player. I think for now, that partnership with those two is probably the best that we have. And there are some things that go together and work quite well. And Xhaka is playing well, and while he's playing well, continue to play him. But in the summer, we need to be looking to move on. And he's another player who has a market. We are terrible at selling people. He is one of the only players we have that will make us some money. Let him play well for the rest of the season, and then goodbye. Thank you very much for your service. Give me 25 million, and let's rebuild the team.
Yeah, very, very fair points. And I think, I agree with everything that's been said so far. I guess in terms of being practical, I generally just can't see the club doing that this summer. I look at central midfield as an area of, upgrade opportunity. And I just feel like there's probably a bit too much work to do in that area of the pitch if you are looking to move Xhaka on as well. Because I look at the players that we've tried to sell in the summer just gone, in Guendouzi, Lucas Torreira. You'd like to think Mohamed El Neni is likely to be moved on finally in summer as well. And then Dani Ceballos is only on loan. So, that's 4 central midfielders that, we're probably going to look to move on. If you add a 5th there in Granit Xhaka, you're leaving Thomas Partey as our only centre midfielder. You probably need to buy another 3 on top. So as much as I agree, I actually just feel like, in practice, Xhaka's going to be here next season, and he's most likely going to be one of the starting 2 central midfielders if that is the formation that we go with. So I do hear that, but yeah, I'm just apprehensive as to how likely that is to happen with, and being able to cash in on that market that he currently has.
Also, sorry, just to quickly butt in there, when Arteta talks about, I think he's mentioned before that he wants to move to a 4-3-3 long term, with a single pivot. Xhaka can't play as a single pivot, do you know what I mean? So in transition, Xhaka's going to suffer a lot. So he works best as a double pivot. He needs a partner, do you know what I mean? But if we're gonna, I get what you're saying. Obviously, in terms of practicality, I don't, even though I think he should be sold, I don't expect him to be sold this summer. I expect us to probably use this as a basis for next season. So, and then we may evolve it over time. But yeah, his limitations will continue to hold us back. It might be enough to get us top 4 if we add the right components further forward, but you need to upgrade on him. Sorry.
And in terms of that 4-3-3 and moving forward to that, I think we saw that ever so slightly after that Partey injury in that game against Villa, with, I guess, Xhaka playing as the deepest player, and then Odegaard and Smith Rowe playing either side of him. And I thought that was quite an interesting midfield. Maybe going forward, it might be Thomas Partey playing in that Xhaka role with Odegaard and Smith Rowe. But I'll start with you, Sharon, I guess here. How do you feel that midfield with Smith Rowe and Odegaard playing alongside, how do you think that function? And do you think that's something that we might see for the rest of the season, or at points in the rest of the season?
So I'm very much a proponent of getting as many technical players onto the pitch as possible. It would probably need a lot of work tactically, because I'm not sure how we'd look in transition with that sort of midfield 3, and if they can get through sort of that level of volume of work. But people also said before Pep came, he turned KDB and David Silva into 8s ahead of Fernandinho, and we didn't anticipate that working well. But I guess also because they got through quite a volume of work, so it remains to be seen whether Smith Rowe and Odegaard can do the same. I would like to see it trialled maybe at some point. You know, we're at that stage in the season where we're not going to be playing for much in the league, so this is probably as good as a free hit you're going to get in terms of experimentation. You're going to be allowed to, you know, chop and change, and we're probably only going to take the Europa League seriously. So I would like to see it, even if we keep the 43-1, maybe you could have ESR coming in from one of the sides, maybe from the left. Obviously, I know it's not his best. He drifts out to the flanks to create overloads, but he probably doesn't want to start there. Probably prefers to start. But it's going to be hard because obviously Odegaard is a 10. He did play obviously centre mid at times for Sociedad last season as well. So, but what I'm happy is just that we have options, and we need to make sure we utilise all of those 3 options on a regular basis going forward anyway.
And Elliot, it'd be good to hear your thoughts, I guess, on the Granit Xhaka point, and then also about how the midfield might look if we do, you know, decide to utilize this 4-3-3 formation.
Yeah, I've never spoken these words. I don't have a lot to say about Granit Xhaka. Everything that we have ever said about Granit Xhaka is right. He is exactly the player he has always been. He has never been as shit as he sometimes is portrayed as being. He will never be good enough to take us where we want to go. Standing next to a really effective ball progressor who can carry it, who can draw in defenders, beat them, and give it to Xhaka with space to look up and deliver, he can do that. Given it under pressure, he's either going to give it away or go back to his center back. He can't trick his way past. He can't carry the ball forward. He is a static, long-range passer of the ball. I think he's looked better in these last couple of games when we pushed him way up the pitch because, you know, the decision-making is done for him. He gets it and he gives it, and that's a little more instinctive. This is not a bad footballer, the ball, but he has to work in a team with the aspirations that we should have. Whether he'll be gone in the summer or not, I mean, I have to agree, a team looking out for its future that's committed to a rebuild has to find a way to cash in on its assets. So this business of we can't do it for this reason or we can't do it for that reason or it'll leave us short for this. Like at some point, what are we going to do? Re-sign him to a new deal and then have him leave on a free and have him into his 30s getting worse? We're probably seeing the best case scenario of Xhaka right now. It is a clear area of improvement. We have committed big money to Thomas Partey right in the heart of his prime. So put a partner next to him who can give you one of the elite midfield. If we were able to find a partner for Partey who is elite, who has the things that Xhaka doesn't, and you've got Smith Rowe who looks like he is a budding star in that 10 role between the lines, and you can have Saka on one side and Pepe on the other and Aubameyang through the middle, there's a ceiling there that is much higher than it is right now. And I would like to see us try to pursue that path to improvement. Now, as far as, you know, formationally what you could do, I mean, yes, you could have a single pivot with Partey at the base and 2 8s in Smith Rowe and Odegaard. I mean, this is the problem with loans. Odegaard is not going to be here next season. I mean, look, could he be? He could, but probably not. And so it is very difficult to commit to a tactical solution that deploys a player that is very talented and potentially solves problems, but who is also not going to be here 4 months from now, 5 months from now. So I think that is the challenge with loans. When you're a team that really lacks identity and you're trying to figure out what your identity is, God forbid your identity gets forged around a player that you then have to replace 4 months later. So I don't know. And again, if Odegaard winds up staying, that's a whole different story. So yeah, for me, you know, this is the problem with the sort of short-term memories that people have with players. I am convinced that if Willian banged in a hat trick against Leeds this coming weekend, people be in my mentions being like, oh, I bet you don't think he sucks now, mate. Like, no, he still sucks, man. He still sucks. He had a hat trick. He still sucks. Like, I was really down on this transfer. He played a blinder against Fulham, first game of the season, and I caught hell for it. And I wish I had caught hell all season and he had a blinder every game, but he didn't. The fact is, these players are not what they do in one game. They are what they do over the balance of the career. And like, Xhaka has played enough for Arsenal. We know who he is. He has never been as bad as we said. He is never going to be as good as we'd like. And for that reason, move on. Midfield is too important. You put Thomas Partey in there and you go, oh, that's what an elite footballer looks like in the center of the pitch. I'd like more of that, please. that's where I stand on that. And I realize I had nothing to say about him, so managed to squeeze it into about 4 or 5 minutes.
Right. But to add to that point, because I think the Odegaard point you make is quite interesting. And the thing is, when Odegaard came on, and this is the first time we've had a proper look at him in an Arsenal shirt, he screams to me like a reference player. I think when he came on, the style of play of the whole team kind of shifted a little bit.
Yeah.
And it became so the way ESR plays 10 is quite a low touch 10, a lot of movement off the ball. I love the way he plays 10. He does a lot for the creativity of the team and he's knitted it really well together. But Odegaard's completely different. Odegaard's a player that give me the ball, give it to you, give it back. Lots of one touch, two touch football. And I think he was the catalyst for the style change, which we enjoyed so much. And because he's such a reference player, and you can see he's quite a dominant player in the offensive third, if we become reliant on him and he just disappears to Madrid, what are we supposed to do? Because you don't find those players every day. And you don't find players who play that style every day. So even though he's really exciting, we have to be very, very careful with how we build this team moving forward, especially in the back end of the season going into next season, if he's not going to stay permanently. Because we're not in control of that situation.
You picked up something interesting too, Leroy, that comes right from what Odegaard said. He did an interview with Guillaume Balaguer, and he said, where do you play on the pitch? And he said, Zidane really likes me here, and he wants me to kind of wait for the ball and find the space, but I have to go get the ball. I want to meet where the ball is. I want to take the ball. I want to pick it up. So you're definitely picking up on that character identified in himself, which is his instinct is to go ball, turn and go and carry it up the pitch. And ironically, at Madrid, I guess he felt that wasn't as much of what they want from him. They want him to try to stay between the lines, to try to find the pocket of space. But yeah, he definitely knows that he's a player that wants to go get the ball. And I totally agree with your point that you were building on, which is just how do you deal with having a player that becomes an important part of your team, that there's not a player like him easily available in the market. But I just thought that was interesting what you said about being a reference player, because I watched that interview with Guillaume Balaguer, and he definitely feels that way about himself as well.
Definitely. And I think on that point, one of the things that I wrote earlier this evening, just before jumping on this podcast, is I think that's probably why I would quite like to see Smith Rowe and Odegaard play together, because I think they the way that they both try to play is very different, but I also think it's very complementary, in the sense that Smith Rowe is a very big off the ball mover, and Odegaard is very on the ball mover. And I feel like Smith Rowe's understanding of where to position himself on the pitch and how to position himself in space, and Odegaard's ability to find players in space, and Smith Rowe's movement in attracting defenders towards him, so you can get third man runners like Saka or Pepe in on goal. I think that could be a big elevation into how Arsenal look to close out the rest of the season and the style of play that we're trying to develop. Because I thinking back to Man City and the way David Silva and Kevin De Bruyne played, they occupied very, very different areas of the pitch. Kevin De Bruyne liking to drift into that right half space and whip those, those crosses or cross-come passes into the box. And David Silva very much still a combination player in those tight spaces, in that, sort of zone 14 area. So I feel like with the two of them in the team, you can get that similar sort of combination where Smith Rowe's in the pockets looking for those combinations, and Odegaard's out there in the half spaces trying to whip those balls into the box.
I see. I do like that, but the only thing is, do you feel that having Partey at the base limits him too much?
I was about to say that as well. It's one of the tough things about Partey is that because he's so good and he can do so much, putting him as a 6, you kind of feel like it just limits him, because you've got a player there who can carry the ball up the pitch, who can punch through line. So having him, because if he was to play as a single pivot, he's got to be very positionally sound. So he's not going to be allowed to venture forward as much, and I kind of feel like that does limit him. So I would like to, because it's interesting, whether you choose to build with the 2 or you build with the 1. I would like, and this then raises the point about what is Arteta's long-term plan. Does he because when he first came, he built with the 2 and he had Ozil at 10, and obviously then he went back to the 3-4-3, and now he's back to playing with a 10 again. So I wouldn't be so opposed to keeping this 4-2-3-1, I have to be honest to you, if we could find a better partner, partly because I don't want to limit Partey, and I do think having him just as a 6 limits him a bit. So I like him as a, you know, an 8 who is box to box and who does a bit of everything.
I will just say that, like, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I was just going to say, I also think some of this depends, like, on how we see ourselves recovering possession and you know, what our primary build-up strategy is, right? If we're building back to front, then I think you want that double pivot in there more. If we're going to be more of a pressing or counter-pressing team, I think you can afford to have a bit more of a single pivot because everything's up the pitch more. Your back four is playing a bit more of a high line. You know, Partey's not standing 10 yards deep of the halfway line. He's in the opposition half, and we're winning the ball back higher up the pitch. And those 2 8s ahead of the 6 are pressing agents, right? And they trigger the press. And I've seen a little bit more of us doing that, and I really like it. But I think if you want to build back to front, you know, in a slower build-up phase, maybe you keep one of those 8s back as more of a partner with him. I noticed we went back to doing the thing recently where Xhaka drops into the line of central defenders to make a 3 on the left side in the first phase of build-up, and Partey gets, you know, sort of isolated, not isolated, but he's his own partner. He's alone between the lines, and then Smith Rowe drops in a little bit, and Bellerin makes another midfielder. That's where I really do like Arteta. Whatever reservations I have about him as a manager, as a coach, he clearly has a lot of ideas and a lot of solutions for different phases of play. I actually think when he first arrived, maybe it was too complicated. It was too much like calculus, and the players, you know, left backs were left center backs, and central midfielders were sometimes full backs, but sometimes they were strikers, but also the strikers at 10, and like it was too much. But he clearly has different ways of solving based on this is a build up and where we are in areas of the pitch, right? So I don't worry about that as much. I think you can play this and be a little more front-footed and counter-pressing, and then just drop them side, building from the back to create more of a solid foundation, and whoever goes, one stays. You know what I mean? Like, football isn't as rigid anymore, wear one hat, and that's why I think, you know, you're seeing more all-arounder type players. Instead of Mesut Ozils, you're seeing Kevin De Bruyne's, right? Guys who can facilitate, but also tackle back at the top of their own box, you know?
Yeah, and I think that's those are really good points around build up. And I think one thing that I would say to add to that, and on that point around limiting Partey, is it depends on what you want your 8s to do, because I think Partey can be an ineffective box to box player, but I'd say the question marks around him is in that sort of that final third activity and the final third actions. Is that a guy that you do want, you know, close to the opposition box, linking play, or potentially finishing chances and adding goals? And I'm not particularly sure that is the kind of player that Thomas Partey is. And I can compare it to, you know, N'Golo Kante under Maurizio Sarri, for instance. He was one of those, you know, number 8s, and in the final third he wasn't as effective as, you know, someone like a David Silva would be, despite him, you know, getting into loads of positions, you know, in that position, playing in that role, basically. So in terms of, you know, likening him to another player who plays 6, and I think someone like Fernandinho or Fabinho, they're also both, you know, very press resistant, excellent passers of the ball. And I wouldn't say that, you know, using them in that role limited them as much, playing as the 6. So, you know, if you saw how we looked against Aston Villa when Partey came off, our build-up was very much affected when he wasn't on the pitch. And I feel like that's the area where he really excels, is in that first and second phase and progressing the ball up. So I don't actually think that using him as a 6 would limit him that much, especially if you are, you know, sort of dominating possession and having a lot of time on the ball. Yes. So,
Dan, watch how often the ball goes back to the center backs when Partey's not on versus when he's on. I mean, it's almost like he has a contract clause where he gets docked money for passing to the center backs. It's crazy. Like, when he comes off, we build through the center backs more, and it's so much more stale and slow and predictable and easy for the defense to get their shape. You're spot on. You're right, it might limit him a bit, but what he does that changes everything for us is take it off the center backs, turn, draw on a defender, and go by him, or first touch out of his feet, second touch up the pitch. So yeah, as long as he's doing that, I think you're getting what you need from him.
Agreed. And I think another thing to, I guess we've touched on Man City a lot. I guess it's it's almost natural given that that's where Arteta's come from, and sort of that's a lot of the reference points I think we can point to as to what we're doing in the team. I think it's very interesting the way Pep is using João Cancelo this season, and how he's used Kyle Walker, Zinchenko, Fabian Delph in the past. And I guess this is another player that I think his performance is something worth discussing from this Aston Villa match, is Hector Bellerin, right? And I personally see that as a big upgrade opportunity there as well. And I think that, upgrading in that position will probably allow us to do a few more interesting things in terms of how we build play and how we attack, as well as how we defend, and defend counters. So I guess, Elliot, what do you make of his performance in this game? And do you agree with me that you think it's a potential upgrade opportunity there?
Yeah, sorry. So you just cut out just a little bit. So I had a little bit of difficulty hearing the setup for that one. So from what angle specifically? Sorry, I apologize. My internet.
Sorry. So that was just on the way Pep Guardiola's used his fullback. So Cancelo, Delph, Zinchenko, Kyle Walker, and whatnot. And whether you think that Bellerin position is something that we could upgrade and do similar things with.
Well, so sorry. So I mean, this is where it's really tricky. Fullback, I think, is a very difficult position to analyze right now, because it's a position that's having a moment, for lack of a better way to say it. You know what I mean? Like, you look at Liverpool, and fullback has been one of the most important routes to goal scoring opportunities for them over the last couple of seasons, Robertson and especially TAA, right? But from more traditional positions, crossing the ball, winning the ball, crossing the ball. And you look at Pep, and you have had players in that invert and become the deepest central midfielders at times. Well, it might have been 2 or 3 seasons ago he was doing that, the inverted fullbacks, right? And they were tucking in almost like a 2-2 box, in the first phase of play. Like, there's just so many ways you can use it. It seems like what Arteta wants to do is keep the left back on the outside, almost like a winger, and use the right back more like an auxiliary midfielder. And maybe that's because of who he's got on either wing, that he wants Saka to be able to stay wider, and he wants to push Pepe closer to the box. Maybe it's because he feels it suits their skill set, that Bellerin is, and I think rightly so, an exceptional possession-oriented passer who takes up really interesting internal positions, right? Inside positions, whereas Tierney can push and run and send in a really good cross into the box. Guys, I got to admit, like, I have a soft spot for Bellerin. I think he's overly criticized. I think Hector Bellerin, the problem, look, Hector Bellerin is a B- C+ defender at best. Maybe he's a C+, C- defender. He is a liability there. He's easy to get dribbled. He gets his weight too much on one foot. He shows the man to his strong side sometimes, where you're like, what are you doing? Why are you showing him there? Like, he has some positional issues defensively. He's definitely not as good a crosser as he needs to be. But in terms of some of his passing and some of his interior passing and some of his interior movement, it really is exceptional. And like, even in the Villa game, he had one really good curling shot from the top of the box that comes from him taking up an interior position, carrying it to the top of the box, and having a really good shot at goal. He set up one fantastic chance in the game. He has the ability to do it, and he just doesn't bring it all together. I know Clive on our podcast really thinks we need an upgrade in that position. And I'm not saying we don't. Like, if you could find me a really good, better right back than Bellerin, I'd say let's take him. But to your point, Dan, I'm not totally sure what role it is, right? I don't think we want to push and run and cross right back. It doesn't strike me as the way that Arteta wants to play. I don't think he wants 2 wide fullbacks. I think he wants one. He wants that asymmetric buildup, with the overload of the extra player on the left with Tierney, and then the extra space for the right wide forward to operate. I mean, I'm maybe not explaining it really well, but I think what I'm trying to say is just that, which is a shame, because this is a podcast where you're supposed to explain yourself. But the player you're going to target depends on the role you want. And I think if the role we want is the right back to be more of an interior auxiliary midfielder when we're attacking, I actually don't think you're going to find many better than Bellerin at that. And that acknowledges all of the flaws of his that I've laid out. So I'm not sure. I guess that's me punting on the question, is to say that if he wants to build play this way, I'm not sure who you'd go get. Like, you wouldn't get Lamptey, right, to play the way Bellerin's playing. You wouldn't go get him to do that. So I don't know. I guess it depends how this position is going to evolve. I think you can absolutely upgrade right back, but I think you have to be clear about what we want the right back to do. We're definitely not asking the right back to do the same thing we're asking the left back to do. Is that fair? Would we agree with that?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, Leroy or Sean, do you have anything that you want to add to what Elliot said?
Yeah, I'd be inclined to agree, and I would actually agree with the way Arteta builds up, and I think Wenger was kind of similar as well. In terms of, he would always have one that would bomb on, and then he would have one who would sit in, and obviously it makes sense in terms of the right back being the one who obviously helps to sit in as an auxiliary midfielder and protects against the counter attack as well. So I've got no issues with that. A lot depends on how it is. I think because of the way we use Tierney, and because Tierney has such, like, the way he plays, he gives us such good athletic capabilities on the left. Like, it sort of forces your hand anyway, like, in terms of what the right back is supposed to do. I would slightly disagree with Elliot in the sense that I don't think Bellerin is the best in possession. But at the same time, my mind is more towards the midfield and attack. Like, that's kind of how I feel. Like, I don't think it's the worst. Like it's the biggest. I think it could definitely be upgraded, but it wouldn't be high up on my priority list, if that makes sense.
Certainly, if there was a good offer to sell Bellerin, I got no problem with that. I just think, like, so in terms of possession, like, let's put it this way: Bellerin just completes a very high percentage of his passes. He's good in possession in the strictest sense, right? Like, he's an 88, 89% passer. He's pretty good in XG chain, which, measures your involvement in moves that result in a chance. It's tough because a lot of times I feel I'm defending Bellerin more than his play deserves, and I know that frustrates people. I think his qualities are underrated, but his liability, the best way I can say it is, the criticisms people have of him are fair. He has those liabilities. I just think people see those liabilities and refuse to see the other part. The things he does do may be the case that the liabilities outweigh those. I would sell if there was a good bid for him, obviously, and I'd upgrade, but I still think we need to be clear about what that fullback is supposed to be doing,
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. And I think it's almost interesting to, how much of it is how the manager wants to play and how much of it is just the profile of player that he has. Because I think, someone like Tierney, the things that he's good at, he is really good at. So you might just have to, build the team to get the best out of that. Whereas, he might want someone that does something similar to what Zinchenko does at Man City, perhaps, if he had his own way. So I guess to sort of wrap up this podcast, let's look ahead to the weekend, which is Leeds United at home. They somehow, inexplicably, managed to draw with us last time, after probably putting our goal under the biggest siege it has been under all season. I guess my question to you, Elliot, would be, what would you do for this game? In terms of changes, set up, who would you like to see start, and then I guess a mini prediction for how you expect the game to go.
So this is a really tricky game. So I've actually been really bullish on the way we've been playing lately. I think, like most people, this one is tricky for me because Leeds have a very specific way of playing that they're very comfortable with, and they attack the crap out of you, but they do leave themselves extremely exposed if you can play past that press. They are willing to be just flat out bad defensively in exchange for putting you under immense pressure at the other end. This is very different than what we've faced lately, where mostly we've had the ball and we've been in control and we've shot ourselves in the foot a little bit, but we haven't come under immense pressure. But we also haven't had teams that we could really go at. These teams, Wolves, we had to go at them and they looked like they were going to fall apart. And then obviously we go down to 9 men and they could pack the box and, made it hard for us. Villa defended deep because we gifted them an early goal. Leeds are going to give us a chance to come at them. I'm really nervous about what this looks like without Partey. Not to make this the Thomas Partey podcast, but like he is our press breaker. He can get around the Leeds press. I'm not saying he's not vulnerable. I'm not saying he'll never give it away. He's been a little bit loose the last 2 games. But if it's Xhaka and El Neni in midfield, Leeds are going to press the crap out of us. We're going to go back to center backs. Center backs are going to go fullbacks. Fullbacks are going to go center backs. We're going to kick long, and it's going to go out for a throw, and Leeds are going to come again. Like, if Partey's there and he can get past that first guy and push it forward or quickly punch it between the lines to Odegaard or ESR, boom, we're underway. We're now in their attacking third. We bypass the press, and they're super vulnerable. I love our chance to do something unexpected here and win 4-1, 5-2. This could be that kind of game where we have space and we make the right choices in the final third and it all comes together. But I think a big component of that is, can we get through that first phase of their pressure? And Thomas Partey is a big, big key to that for me. So it's tricky too, because look, it's Benfica on Thursday. Partey may be fit, but Arteta may not be willing to risk it. And I can certainly understand. But if it's Xhaka and El Neni, or maybe Ceballos is back and that's a little better, but still slow, back to the center back, safer pass first, that would worry me, guys. So I it's kind of a non-answer, but I see us doing the same things, and it's just going to be, can we get past the first layer of their press to get it into Smith Rowe or Odegaard between the lines, to get it beyond that initial pressure where they can really be gotten at? Or will we be opting for the safe pass, be giving it back to center backs, and ultimately not be able to advance to that second phase of play where we can hurt them?
Yeah, very, very interesting. Leroy, same questions to you, sort of like what would you like to see us do in this match?
So it's hard because I do think the league season's pretty much done, even though I wouldn't tank the season, because you do need that winning momentum and you do need that winning mentality to continue. I would have one eye towards Benfica. And Partey's had a few different injuries, and he, without a pre-season, I'm not sure if he's robust enough to play game after game after game like that. So I would be tempted to rest him. Now, if I was going to go out for the win, I would want to see, well, you have to match Leeds. If you don't match Leeds for intensity, you're finished. So I would like to see our pressers and our hard runners on. I'd like to see Partey, I'd like to see ESR, etc., etc. I feel that with Aubameyang up front, because we're going to get space, and I feel if you put Odegaard and ESR and Saka in the team, or Pepe, Odegaard and Saka in the team, I feel that we've got a chance to score goals against Leeds, and I think we'd win. I really do. I really think we'd win. But it's hard because I'm tempted to rest the players we want to use against Benfica, because that is our real chance at really, really hitting the big time and kind of cheating in our comeback and getting into the Champions League. So I really want to see us put all our eggs in the Europa basket. So I would rest Partey and some of our better players for the game, because a lot of them are really suffering with their load at the moment, and it's showing, because they look tired at the end of games as well. So yeah, I would go for Ceballos and Xhaka, and I'd see how it goes personally.
And Sean, same question.
Yeah, it's a tough one now, because now we go into the fact of, we're going to be balancing that Thursday to Sunday schedule again, and I'd be inclined to agree with Leroy. I just want to put all our eggs, not that you're throwing the league season away, but you have to think with how Partey has reacted at times so far this season, coming off. I think we just need to manage it carefully. So and it is a tough one, because this is a very winnable game just because of the amount of space that will be there to be had, and to be fair, that we've had in a lot of the last few games. So I would, do you know what? I'm going to say something a bit wild. I'd probably do Ceballos and El Neni for this game. It sounds crazy, but I really do think we need to prioritize.
No, you can't do that. That's just fun.
It is. It's incredibly risky. But we need to wrap Partey and ESR in cotton wool, because those are the ones that consistently break lines and are available in between lines for us. So I would. Even if we don't rest Xhaka, but Partey and ESR, I wouldn't start this game.
So can we agree on? I think every one of us agrees that the Europa League is now the priority, that the league season is pretty well done in terms of having much to fight for. I think we can all probably agree Arteta won't see it that way, though. So, like, whether we think that or not, I think you're crazy if you think Arteta will fully, he's not going to pull what he pulled for the FA Cup game. FA Cup tie. He's not. He's just not on the heels of 2 Premier League losses. If we had beaten Wolves and Leeds and he was feeling pretty good about life and was thinking maybe I'll try to get away with this one, maybe. But no, on the heels of 2 losses, the fan base will eat him for lunch if he heavily rotates for Benfica. I just don't see how he can do that. And I mean, just to put a point on what I was saying, Leeds are 5th in the league, basically tied for 4th in expected goals. Like, they are an attacking powerhouse. 36, only City, United, and Liverpool better than them. They are second to last in expected goals against. Only West Brom are worse. So, like, this is a game that is all about where we play. If we are playing in our defensive third and cannot get the ball up the pitch, we are in trouble. If we get it out of our defensive third quickly and get it into their defensive third, we are in business. So I think it is a really fascinating game. And if he wants to throw, El Neni and Xhaka out there in midfield and try to play the Leeds press that way. And again, like, look, if you right now told me we could finish 14th in the Premier League and win the Europa League, like, of course I'm taking that. The Europa League is the priority. It is. But I just don't think the manager has the luxury on the heels of 2 losses sitting 10th, especially when Leeds are above us in the table. And, like, from a PR standpoint, he can't afford to heavily rotate in this game and get beat by Leeds and be 3 losses on the trot in the league. He just can't do it.
That's a fair point.
Yeah. I think those are all really good points. My only 2 cents that I would add to that is that might come into his thinking is the fact that Partey was supposed to come back relatively quickly the first time. Yeah, he got rushed back, and he was out for 8 games. So I hope that thinking is in Arteta's mind a little bit, because if he's out for Benfica and the rest of the important games we have coming up, if we do progress in Europa League, that would be a massive blow. So I think that's probably the only player I can see Arteta choosing to rest here, because a week's rest from the last game is quite big for the likes of ESR and Saka. So I feel like we're probably likely to see those guys get a lot of minutes in this game as well. And I think this is 100% a game for Aubameyang up top. People always saying about, he doesn't get the spacing behind, he doesn't like to face up to defenders, but this is a team where that is literally a non-issue, and they give you ample room in behind to run into. So if we are able to beat the press, having Aubameyang with some space to run into, as we saw against Newcastle, is very, very effective. So I'd like to see him start this match, and also Pepe with his ability to play on the break as well.
You know what's funny? If I could pick one guy to rest for this game, because I'd be worried about him missing, Benfica and so on, it would be Thomas Partey. But if I had to pick one player that we need to face the specific challenge that Leeds presents, it would be Thomas Partey. You know what I mean? You could pick any other player in the team, and I'd say we could probably get away without them in this game. But the way Leeds press, I feel like Partey's the one guy who needs the rest, who we're scared about his fitness issues, but he's the one guy that I think without him, we look really easy to target for that press. So who would want to be a manager? Like, I feel bad for Arteta there.
Yeah, for sure. And so I think that's probably a good place to end the episode. Elliot, thank you very much for coming on again. Listeners, you can find him on Twitter at Yankee Gunner. Please also tune into the Arsenal Vision podcast. I think that's Arsenal V podcast on Twitter as well. And they put out lots of great content that I can vouch for. I think is great content as well.
Thanks, man.
Make sure you follow Touchy Gooners on Twitter, Instagram. Subscribe to the Touchline Fracas YouTube channel. And this week, I think we've got a couple of Patreon pieces scheduled for you, Touchy Gooners. So make sure you subscribe to that as well if you want some extra content in addition to this podcast. But otherwise, thanks everyone for listening, and thank you guys for coming on.
See you there.
Cheers.